Hi there, Chris again. A lot of you guys have been getting in contact with us, asking for advice and writing music for TV, film and advertising. Now, production music is written differently to, say, for example, the music you hear in radio and in the charts. We're going to be speaking to Harry, who's our label supervisor, and also one of our composers, and is going to give you 5 top tips on how to write production music.
Hey, I'm Harry. As Chris said, I'm a label supervisor here at the firm, and I also do a bit of composing. I think a fundamental tip 1 would be to focus on a particular emotion that you're trying to convey. The main reason that production music exists is that it provides that kind of subconscious emotional response to a viewer when they're watching film or TV programs. That they don't necessarily realise is there, but we're actually providing that emotion. The big difference between what we do in production music and what an artist might do when they're producing their own music is that for an artist, the emotion actually comes from them and they're trying to tell their own story, whereas we're actually trying to provide a particular emotional response to a viewer. So that kind of flips on its head. When I write, I'll choose a track name quite early that's a lot of the time quite descriptive, or have some imagery or some clips of some scenes, just to kind of get me in that mindset of the particular emotion I'm trying to actually convey to the viewer. So my tip 2 would be that you don't have to overcomplicate tracks. A sort of 8 to 16 bar solid section with an identity that can run for sort of 2 minutes with different variations is so much more usable to TV editors than a track that might say have a lovely A section and then kind of take you down quite an elaborate B section. Although that might be great, it actually makes it quite tricky to edit into film and TV. Generally, TV editors are really using 30-40 seconds maximum of your tracks. So if you do feel like you're wanting to take a track to a kind of a different place emotionally, just use that as a different track idea. So off the back of not overcomplicating your tracks, I think my 3rd tip would be to be really aware of how you structure them to make them edit friendly. I've got an example here of an acoustic folk track. This one's nice and positive and optimistic. So to kick off this one, we've got a solo ukulele for 4 bars that basically establishes a really clear identity of the track. So I like to give an editor, firstly, an option of a solo instrument, such as a ukulele, that's just doing the main part. And as we go through the track, we've kind of reached the same sort of feeling and the same identity of the track, just with a bit more going on with it. So percussion's added, we've got some drums in there now, we've got a nice little soft piano melody on top. But still, that ukulele is the thing that's driving the track forward as that kind of folky, positive, optimistic thing. An important thing to say with this, you can chop it here as an editor without it kind of feeling like a weird start. It feels like where the track starts. You could quite easily chop it there and it can carry on throughout the scene. A lot of the time as well, when I'm writing tracks, I'll do a drop-down section before the final chorus. And this is great for editors, especially with a versatile track like this that could be used from sort of DIY programs to cookery to even sort of YouTube vlogging or kids TV. In this example, we could say, this minimal section here, still with that uke part that's driving it forward, subtle melody, but they could be chatting about, the sort of the plan for the build on their DIY project or something. And then we get a big sense of reveal from this minimal section into the big final chorus. And that's just really useful for editors because the idea is that they can sort of start any of these parts at any point throughout the episode. So at the start of the episode, they might kick in with this first verse. to establish the scene. In the middle, when they're sort of chatting about how they're going to build something in particular, they might take it to a minimal section. And then finally, as I said, you've got that big reveal part where they've finally finished their house, if you like. Thinking about how you actually end tracks is having a really concise sting. And the idea of a sting is that it basically has the whole identity of the track in 1 or 2 bars. This one we've got a couple of bars, and it helps an editor basically go to an ad break, for example. It's just a great thing to just put on the end of an episode that still ties in to the track before. So my 4th tip, if you don't already do so, is to make versions of your tracks. It's something we do a lot in production music, and the idea is that it takes one track and basically makes it as usable as possible. I've got quite a good example of a pop track that I did last year here that kind of has quite a nice full mix, but when you start breaking it down, it can be ultra usable for kind of various scenes as well, as you'll hear. So we've got a kind of verse 2 section here. So really nice kind of thumpy bass lines, that kind of really heavy kick, some nice percussion lines, driven by that guitar riff. That's the thing that kind of drives the track throughout. And then as we go throughout, there's kind of more synths that rise up and stuff as well. Now, in general, this track is pretty rhythmic anyway, so it would be good to have a mix that solely focuses on all the rhythms. So I'll play that section again and start muting stuff and solo in parts that basically take the rhythm section and make that drive it. So we've obviously got the drums, we've got some nice percussion stuff going on. Definitely the bass is something really cool. That guitar riff, the main guitar riff is pretty rhythmic. We've got some chippy guitars here as well, and some sort of subtle rhythmic synths that are quite cool. Now this is the same track with the same sort of feel, but obviously focused in on the rhythm section, which is great for something like, if there's voiceovers on a TV program, it's great for kind of sitting under voices. Another thing is just a no lead melodies mix. We've got a few top lines here of sort of piano, Glock sort of melodies. Although they're subtle, they're the sort of things that for an editor might be quite distracting to if there's a voiceover again. So it's good to have a mix of just the no lead melodies. But the thing is, with this track, although it's quite full, we could also have a subtle sort of minimal version. If we just focus on these top melodies here and a few synths going on, take the drums out and we'll hear how that's sounding. Potentially add some shaker in there. Just take the shaker slightly down, and now it's kind of feeling like an ultra minimal version of that same track. Again, ultra useful for TV editors. This is the sort of thing that would happen under voices, and then you'd get to that final reveal kind of last chorus. So essentially, when you finish your tracks, it's well worth going through the sessions, soloing the different parts, and making sure that when you do create those versions, that those versions do stand up as a track by themselves. So my final point is to not feel like you can't be creative. Although we tend to use sort of structures and arrangements to write to, we're writing different genres every day, we're writing with different instruments and being really creative with the sounds that we use. And we tend to use these structures as a positive towards our writing. It's basically the most freeing type of composing music, I think. The fact that, the emotion is the priority and we get to compose that specific emotional response to the listener is the most fun part of the job. So don't feel limited with your creativity.
Thanks, Harry. If you guys found the tips useful, then please feel free to comment in the section below. Also click that subscribe button to get more content from us. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.